Welcome, boxing fans, to another episode of Enter the Ring Live. I'm your co-host, Eric the Red, with
AJ Rage. How's it going, my brother?
It's going good, brother. How are you doing?
It's good, man. It doesn't seem right without Mighty Mike here. Just for everybody, Mighty Mike's out today. He had some business to take care of.
He's the word of reason.
Yeah, so I know he's watching right now. So what's up, Mighty Mike? We're gonna try not to mess things up too badly tonight.
I'm gonna mess it up a little bit. So
that's okay. It's boxing. How's my volume
sound?
Here's
a German beer for my brother Rick.
There we go.
And for my daughter, who's in the United Kingdom, I got a Tatty Porter for a little bit later. It's a really dark one. So Gotta love it. Anyway,
gotta love it, man. So we're gonna do something a little different today, bro.
Yeah.
What I was thinking about was, since it's gonna be kind of a quiet weekend this weekend, obviously because of the holidays, we're gonna talk about a little bit like what the title said about the state of the game and some of the goods and some of the bads that's going on in boxing, what possibly needs to be done, who's a bright point, who's a dark point. You know, we're gonna try to get as much in this hour that we're gonna do, but I'm gonna go ahead and start off because I want you obviously to have your Did I froze up?
Yeah, it could be my internet. So sorry.
Did I freeze up? Am I still frozen?
No. You're good. You're
okay.
Good.
So
it's got to be my internet. Sorry.
No problem. So real quick. So obviously there's always a big debate on who's number one, who's number two, and who's number three as far as a pound for pound. Everybody's going to have their different opinion. And I understand that. But I think the problem right now in boxing is there's way too many voices and not enough action. And what I mean by that is you see a lot of channels out there that bring information. It's usually regurgitated information that's already been filtered through other media outlets. Yep. And then they throw their take on it. It's unfortunate because boxing's starting to turn like a lot of the things that are happening in the world today, where there are, I hate to say this, but racial lines. You know,
and you're right. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me get the point real quick and I'll say, so, you know, and it's sad because like every sport, as I feel, or in the world in general, it should never be about color or anything like this. It should be about the athletes themselves. Yep. We have our opinion here on Enter the Ring. We're pretty straightforward. You know, we call ourselves, the only source because, we come from a lineage of boxers ourselves. We've been surrounded by boxing our entire lives. And we were taught growing up to approach boxing like it is and what it's always been represented as, the sweet science. It's something you have to work hard. There is no shortcuts. It's like what Jones Zapata said a few weeks back, in his impressive knockout. There's levels to this game. Yeah. There is no shortcuts. Yeah. Now you see this influx of YouTubers and other ones doing their thing. And it's kind of a mockery because when I see the kind of money and the fan participation, it bothers me because I see some of the young fighters that give their heart, their soul, everything they got just to get an opportunity.
Yeah. When you think about it, when you think about it, you've got, young people, even in other countries that are striving and working and doing everything they can just to get to that next level, to get to that next fight. I mean, guys that are probably starving or working 2 or 3 jobs to be able to box. And yet, you get these idiots on YouTube and all this other stuff that, take a shortcut. And then of course they get their ass handed to them. But it's ridiculous. It's really stupid. It's a really sad part of the boxing world right now.
Well, and, I think what's even sadder, bro, is the fact that people actually tune in. I mean,
I know.
I only have to cover certain aspects of it. I'll hear about it, hoping that whatever. But in the most part, like you said, you're absolutely right.
I won't watch it.
Boxing, there's always this push that boxing is on the decline. Most of it usually comes from the MMA world. Like I said, I don't want to slander any sport, but let's be honest here. I remember from the inception of MMA to when UFC started. And from the get-go, I knew Dana White was going to be an issue because Dana White, he came out very abrasive. You compare Dana White and his professionalism to say somebody like Al Heyman from the Premier Boxing, and you can't even compare the two. One's a gentleman and a businessman, and the other one's just a crude, obnoxious. Every other word is the F word. You know,
Yeah.
his word is law, kind of like what's going on in this world. But it's just kind of disgusting because it's not boxing. Boxing never started that narrative and say to compare themselves to MMA. It was MMA that right away jumped on the coattail of boxing and tried to compare it, you know, like they were the more complete sport. Well,
Look at it this way. I mean, you know, you want to compare this to that. Look at what Conor McGregor, I'm gonna, you know, come out, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And he just was made a fool of when he tried to box.
And I think Conor did better than most anticipated because I just think Floyd is such a defensive minded fighter and his skills are just so eroded at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Floyd's bad for the sport. He's just bad.
We're gonna get to Floyd. We're gonna get to Floyd. So let's take on this thing with the MMA. So right now we're covering the MMA versus boxing thing. So it always seems like Dana White has an opinion about everything. And I know that he's the one that initiates a lot of this stuff, like the situation he's got going on with Oscar De La Hoya. At the end of the day, whether you like De La Hoya and Golden Boy or you don't like De La Hoya and Golden Boy, as a boxing fan, whether casual, hardcore, whatever, or somebody within the industry like us, you have to respect what he does in a sense, because it's a lot of work to put together these events, whether they're successful, they're not successful. Dana White's always trying to position himself to outdo boxing. The problem is during the pandemic, boxing showed its resilience compared to MMA. MMA just, you know, I'm gonna attribute that to the dedication of the athlete. You know, people say, well, you know, mixed martial arts, you know, we got a vast array of skills, so you know we're bringing different levels. Yeah. And you know what? My daughter was in judo, you know, Brazilian jiu-jitsu for years. And I see it, you know, it's got its hard work that's associated to it. But I remember when I was boxing, getting up in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, running my 5-6 miles, going to school, coming back, then go to the gym for 3-4 hours.
Yep.
You know, and knowing that you're not the top dog in the gym, you got talent around you.
You were always top dog.
It's a claw to the top. And the thing is, boxing can be a good thing, but it can be a bad thing. Unlike some other sports like the NFL and other ones, there's not a retirement fund set up for boxers. When a boxer, he could be 17-0 and look like he's going to be the next big thing. Next, you know, he suffers an upset loss and his whole world's turned upside down. Kind of like what's going on with Teofimo Lopez right now. And they got to take a deep look at themselves. Some of them can rebound like John Molina did after his loss about years ago to Antonio DeMarco. He came back to be very successful and have a very successful career. And then there's some that just can't bounce back. But the problem I got with people like Dana White is when he goes out there and he talks a big game and calls guys like Oscar De La Hoya an asshole and this and this and this. The point is, Dana can sit here and try to paint this picture of a tough guy. I'm going to shave my head, get a bunch of tattoos and wear some tap out gear, and I'm a tough guy. Well, let me tell you something right now. Regardless if you believe it or not, Oscar De La Hoya is a tough guy. He's the type of guy that if Dana White confronts him, Oscar's going to teach him a lesson in a physical way. And it would be really easy for him to do, even at this age, you know? So,
yeah.
I mean,
I agree. But you know what? I look at it this way. Dana White, he does this because he's like the little tiny Chihuahua that's barking at the Great Dane. You know, I'm going to be better than you. I'm going to be better. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. And the Great Dane's just kind of like, whatever, dude. Just shut the hell up.
You know what, though, bro? Dude, that was a great analogy. So I'm going to tell you why. Because if you look at the two sports, MMA is always talking about boxing. They're always bringing them up in their narratives. Boxing doesn't really say anything back. It's just kind of like, you know, you don't want to cross that line, you know, because in reality, it doesn't really bother us because it's like there's no reality there. Because I remember Mayweather, and you know I've had my issues with Floyd Mayweather. This is going to tax us into Floyd Mayweather thing, but Mayweather, I remember one time
went downhill fast.
Well, he was being compared to certain things, and Dana White was making comments on him and this and how he's bad for this and he doesn't do this, and Mayweather turned and said, you know what, you're always trying to make it look like MMA is comparison to boxing, whatever it is, UFC or Bellator or whatever. He's all, you don't pay your guys shit. Even your top dogs are making what I was making 16 years ago. He's all, the day that you could pay an MMA guy, a mixed martial arts guy, for a world title, $100 million for one fight, we could talk. But until then, unless you got that kind of money, because he's always trying to tempt Floyd to come in, because obviously Floyd's not a mixed martial arts guy. You got to bring a guy in there. He'll just, all he's going to try to do is get Floyd to the ground and then grab him out. That's it. Because I remember, and they try to hide it. But I remember years ago, they brought in Ray Mercer. Ray Mercer was the former heavyweight champ, but he was already I think he might already been in his 50s. And they matched him up against Tim Silva, the former UFC champion. They get inside there. It's the first round. Bell rings. Mercer throws one right hand and knocks Silva unconscious. And it just kind of got swept underneath the table because, we don't want to show that. But I've said that all along. I'm going to go
look that up, dude. I didn't get it. I didn't see that.
I'll show it to you. But I mean, the thing is that Dana White has to understand, we don't care what he's doing over in UFC. I'm glad he's doing it. It gives here's my take on it. You're not going to like this. MMA people are going to like this. The athletes out there that don't have the skill and dedication to be a boxer have an alternative, and it's called mixed martial arts. Yep. It is what it is,
that's
man.
The truth. You're absolutely
I'm sorry.
Right.
It's like the Arena Football League. The guys that make the NFL end up in the Arena Football League or Canada or, playing semi-pro ball.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's like the junior league. You know what I mean? So you can take a piss poor boxer, train him on some, wrestling moves or whatever, and he'll probably catch a guy standing up more times than these other guys that are, been doing martial arts all their whole life. It doesn't matter. When you get punched in the face, you get punched in the face. You know what I mean? And when there's a boxer that actually knows how to punch, there's no question.
Well, there was a guy out of Robert Alcazar's gym. He was a sparring partner for John Molina. He actually used to be a mixed martial artist guy, but he boxed too. And he's got kind of an even record. Great guy named Dat Pham. Dat actually, a guy that was supposedly like a Buddhist, like a Shaolin, like a martial arts guy, high level, challenged him. Kind of like what happened with Bruce Lee. Went inside there and Dad had it in his ass, knocked him out. I mean, the point is that, what Dana White doesn't understand is that by casting these venomous words and trying to destroy what boxing's worked so hard to build, even in these bad times, you're just going to unemploy more people if boxing's audience gets smaller. So is Dana White willing to step up and employ those unemployed boxers and give them opportunity? Absolutely not. It's no different than companies downsizing what they're doing to people today or the government. Yeah. So we have to look at that before, and this is going to help us segue into the Mayweather thing. I know I'm yapping, but
no, you're fine, brother. I like listening to you talk. So,
but I mean, the thing is, like I said, I mean, do you agree? I mean, if you're gonna talk bad about a company, about something else that's maybe competitive, non-competitive, maybe you just don't like the fact that they got a better side of the street than you do. Is it fair to that person over there because you have these personal indifferences and you've never been given an opportunity? So a lot of people don't know out there is Dana White did have his feet in boxing. Well, long before he was in MMA, he was a failed boxing promoter. So he knows how hard it is to get anything off the ground. So his success that came in MMA is great, but he didn't have that same success in boxing.
No, and you know what? Probably what he learned to try and make himself successful came from boxing. So he should be freaking thankful.
Absolutely.
But he's not. He's not. But you know what? Anyway.
So let's talk a little about Floyd Mayweather, because there was actually a conversation and a thing that came up the other day.
Well, hold on. Hey, let me say something first about Floyd.
Sure.
Okay. So years back, before he was retired and whatever, he's a skilled fighter. He's a skilled boxer. His defense is just amazing. And so he'd get a lot of, he got all the wins, which is great, fine for the sport. And he actually tried, when he was actually boxing, to make the sport better. You know what I mean? He was all about the money for him, money. But you know what? It doesn't matter. He wasn't a trash talker as like some of these, newer kids coming out. But then once the limelight, ceased, he became a leech, I guess you might say, on the boxing world. You know what I mean? And he just is sucking the life out of it. And he's given that life to just trash.
No, I agree.
I mean, absolute trash. And he's single-handedly, or actually more than single-handedly, but he is making the boxing world worse.
Well, he's the
Floyd,
new
do us a favor. Floyd, do us a favor.
Leader.
Get the hell out.
Yeah,
just shut the hell up. Get away. Go enjoy retirement. Spend your millions. Do whatever. Get the hell out of the boxing scene, because you know what? You're a drain. You are a drain on this industry.
Well, it's not just the industry he's a drain on, bro. I'll tell you what the problem with Floyd is. If you look at Floyd, there was a recent interview that came out, and I'm going to send it to you. I want you to watch it. This guy from this other channel had it, and it was an interview with Mickey Bay.
All right.
Mickey Bay was a fighter that was under the money team. He was an undefeated guy. He was with Top Rank for years, and then he went over there. He was undefeated. He's the guy that John Molina came back and stopped in the 10th round. Okay. Mickey Bay's career was so mismanaged by Mayweather Promotions that he was like, Floyd wasn't even handling my business. It was like Floyd's cousin that was doing it, and they were taking money from him, and nobody was going out there and seeking to get him the fights that he needed, and he was stuck in this and that. So they pretty much ruined the career of Mickey Bay, you know, which is ironic because
talented fighter
last
too.
Fight was against George Kambosos, in which he lost a decision. But I mean, the thing is, it's like hearing Mickey Bay talk about what happened to him in his career. It's not the first time this has happened. Don King did this for years with people. He had his hands so deep in people's pockets, like guys like Larry Holmes, Trevor Burbick. I mean, you know, Greg Page. I mean, you name it. He stole so much money from these guys. And then it got so bad that Don King had to uproot and go to like Russia or England. He's promoting fights out there now. But my biggest problem with Mayweather isn't the fact that he's still trying to hold on to this limelight. And he portrays himself as the GOAT, which is the greatest of all time. That's his opinion. And people can have that opinion. Some people may feel he is. For me, myself personally,
he lost a couple fights. He just got the decision.
It's not even that. I mean, you know, that's the misconception. And that's what Floyd doesn't understand. It's not being the greatest ever, meaning a couple different variables. It means who you fought, when you fought them, the risk you took, how your image portrayed elevated boxing and brought in new fans. You were the it thing. You took any challenge, kind of like what Canelo's doing. I'm not saying Canelo's gonna be the greatest ever, but kind of like what he's doing. But Floyd didn't do that.
It's a lot better than Floyd, though.
In the later part of Floyd's career, Floyd became very defensive minded. This happened about after the Angel Man Freddy fight, because he was having some hand issues. I'm sorry. And his defensive prowess was amazing, but it doesn't make for good television. And unfortunately, Floyd got so obsessed with just keeping his undefeated record because he came so close. And that
what's funny is as time went on, the draw to watch him or to watch his fights wasn't to see him win. Everybody wanted to see him lose because you know, when there's only so many times you can do the shoulder roll and just walk away and get away, walk away and get away, walk away and get away and take the damn decision because you bought off everybody. Anyway,
I tell you, Eric, you must be like you should have been a fortune teller, bro, because you must be having like a link to my brain, because that was my exact name thing. Is Floyd got smart. He understood that he always lived by the philosophy. The name of the game is hit and don't get hit, which doesn't really,
doesn't equate to great fights. But anyway,
so Floyd surrounded himself with a protective shell, in a sense, between the people that he was dealing with the promoters down to the referees. He always used Kenny Bayless. He always had certain people in the way he did things.
Yeah.
The thing about Floyd was he does have a good part of him, but he got so obsessed about the money situation, he changed.
Yep.
He wanted to keep that but deep down inside, Floyd was still this little hurting boy because he had this problem with his dad, and it was his uncle, Roger Mayweather, who I actually respected a lot more. The Black Mamba, the former WBC super lightweight champion, who passed away recently. was the one who really kept him doing what he was doing. Because once Floyd's career was over and Floyd started doing this circus sideshow, fighting this kickboxer from Japan, doing stuff, Roger wanted to have no part of it. Roger was like, man, I'm about boxing, man. Money's great and everything, but I'm about boxing, you know? So, I mean, the point is, so well, I'm seeing Floyd's becoming destructive. He can keep doing these little sideshows for as long as he wants to. Until one day he just might walk into the wrong guy. And do you really want to end your career after everything you feel that you've done that's been great by getting knocked out by a guy who's a juggler from Ringling Brothers Barn Belly Circus? Who knows? The way it goes. But
now I would pay for that.
Yeah.
I would pay to see that.
But
I'd buy the DVD.
These young fighters, bro. It's what he's doing to these young fighters. So
it's sad.
He's got his claws into Gervonta Davis. And I saw something in this last fight against Isaac Cruz. I know a lot of people are saying
I was not impressed with
Gervonta
Davis at all.
Well, I'm going to tell you why.
I really wasn't.
I'm starting to see, I thought Gervonta was a little smarter. I thought Gervonta learned from his interactions and his friendship with Adrian Broner. Adrian the Problem Broner out of Cincinnati, Ohio, was one of Floyd's first real superstars to come out. A declarated amateur, a guy tearing through the ranks and winning world titles.
And became just...
Adrian Broner was what I thought was the complete. And if there was going to be an heir apparent to Floyd Mayweather, it was going to be Adrian the Problem Broner. You hated everything about him and his attitude, but the guy, you had to respect his skills. He was
a beast. He was an aggressive beast.
Well, he was the epitome of a boxer puncher, which you don't see a whole lot of. You either got a puncher or a boxer or whatever. But when Adrian started to work with Floyd somehow tricked him into, if you're going to be me, man, you're going to be me, actually going to be me. And he started changing the way Adrian fought. Adrian started turning into a defensive-minded fighter. You see it to this day. He still can't pull that trigger because all that work and all that stuff that he did, it changed his game. It destroyed the career of Adrian Broner. Based off of his last fight, it's starting to happen to Gervonta Davis. Yeah. And that's why I told Mighty Mike, in that last episode, that if Gervonta Davis gets in the ring with a guy like Ryan Garcia, I'm not saying right this moment, Ryan Garcia hasn't been systematically changed that way. He's going to be very aggressive. Take's becoming very defensive minded. His output's getting lower and lower and lower. And eventually he's going to turn Adrian Broner, and Take doesn't have the stature to withstand. No. You know, he's kind of like Mike Tyson. He's like Mike Tyson trying to stay outside against Carl the Truth Williams and get jabbed to death. That ain't going to work. Yeah. You know, so Gervonta's got to get away from Floyd. That's where I think Floyd is so destructive in the sport, where he's changing these guys. Because let's be honest, it's the, how can I say? It's the clear way for Floyd to stay the GOAT, to stay the 50-0 and up kick the guys who have a chance to possibly upseat him from his throne. Yeah. Yeah. You know,
well, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the future? You know, I would love to see Mayweather, just like you said, just face a juggler, just get his ass handed to him. That'd be great. But I mean, if he keeps playing these stupid ass games, he's going to. And you know what? When that happens, I won't pay for the pay-per-view, but after it happens, I will absolutely be watching that on replay. Because he's hurt the sport that we love. You know, he truly absolutely
has. But you know what? I went back and I watched the Canelo Alvarez fight versus Floyd Mayweather, because there's always so much talk. And Floyd made some recent statements where he said Canelo was easy work. I said, yeah. So let's
23 years old.
As I said. So let's backtrack a little bit. So I went back and I watched the fight. And one of the people that was announcing the fight, of course, Kenny Bayless was the referee. Who was announcing the fight was a guy named Colonel John or Bob Sheraton. Whatever. So I'm watching the fight and I'm trying to understand. This is the first time I started to see the manipulation of the commentators. It's almost like the news today. They're telling you something, but that's not what's happening. But they say it so many times that you start to believe it. So Canelo's in there doing what he's doing. He's not doing a whole lot, but he's doing more than Floyd. Floyd's just kind of moving around. Floyd's getting caught. And there was one moment where in the second round where Canelo caught him with a right hand that kind of got him to the chin just a little bit, but Floyd was going back, and then Canelo came back to the body. And then Floyd spun and like missed with like 3 shots he missed. And he was like, once again, another beautiful combination by Floyd Mayweather. And after the round was over, he was like, a better round for Canelo. But once again, Canelo's completely out of his element. He's in there with just a master. I mean, if this was an artist, this is a masterpiece being painted. I'm like, oh my God, are you freaking kidding me, dude? You know,
dude,
and it's,
brother, that's why when after the first round of
you turn down the volume, huh?
Oh, I shut it off, dude. I mute it. I mute that shit because you know what? I can't. If I'm gonna judge a fight, I'm gonna judge a fight based on the fight, not on hearing this asshole or this asshole. I actually,
it's, you know what it is, bro. It's controlled media, and I'm gonna tell you what I mean by controlled media.
That's it. You
all
say something
all
enough.
The guys who won't take that little siphon, who won't change who they are to benefit the network. We lost.
Take the step
Bobby
aside
Chez,
money to get away. Yeah.
Paulie Malignaggi, Teddy Atlas.
Yep.
3 of the best boxing commentators called it like they saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't pick a side.
Yep.
You know, but instead now we got this narrative of, case in point.
If I have to hear Maddox anymore,
yeah, Chris Maddox is, you know, that's the sad thing is that, you know,
dude, I can't handle it.
I'm not saying you have to play this.
Some chance, hey, hold on. If by some chance, Chris Maddox, you ever see this, get the hell out of it. You don't know your ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to freaking boxing. Get away. You're hurting the sport.
Well, you know what makes me laugh about Chris Maddox, and I was talking to Mike about this the other day, was his arguments with Sergio Mora. He's always casting insults at Sergio Mora. And I'm not a Sergio Mora fan.
Me either.
I think he's got his issues. But Sergio Mora was a boxer, a former world champion.
Punches, yeah.
And for Chris Maddox to try to correct Sergio Mora on how something should be done is like me trying to, you know, tell a fireman how to put out a fire. It doesn't make any sense. I've always Sergio Mora turn around and tell him, hey, Chris, you know what? You need to stop that shit, dude, because I'm going to embarrass you. And all Sergio's got to do to end the argument is go, hey, Chris, so how many pro fights did you have? How many amateur fights? Did you even have a street fight? You know, I mean, but
he
like
probably
I said,
got beat up by girls, dude.
this control media, it started back then and it's gotten worse. And none of the telecasts are really good. You look at Top Rank, you got Tim Bradley, who all of a sudden now has an opinion on everything. Tim Bradley has crossed that bad guy threshold in the sense he's going to do everything in his power through words, not through advice or intentions, which he should be putting towards T. Bud Crawford. Instead, and telling Crawford, hey, man, you got to fight better fighters, man. If you want to really get this, if you want me to pump this up to the world, you got to give me a little something, man, because I'm kind of exposing myself. Me and Andre are looking like 2 guys who are just a little bitter, which they are. The problem is that he's downplaying everything. And now he's making these asinine predictions like, well, you know, if Andre wanted to, he'd come back and just clean house on Canelo and everything. I'm like, no, dude, let me tell you something right now. Andre Ward showed his true colors when he crossed the football field to the other side and went and tried to help Caleb Plant upseat a guy who's already surpassed anything Andre Ward ever did. Andre Ward's most brightest moment was in a losing moment. And that was his battle against Sergey Kovalev. Nobody tuned into Andre Ward's fight. He couldn't sell out his fights in his hometown.
Nope.
Okay. He never ventured outside of 175 pounds. He was stuck there. He lived there. He raised a family there. He won his title there. When he retired, I swear to God, funny story. When he retired, I remember I was talking to Mike and I brought up a scenario about Andre Ward. And Mike was like, hey, Andre retired. I go, he did?
When was that?
There was no media burst. There was no people on Twitter, oh, you know, have a good retirement. It was just like sayonara, going to the horizon. And that really bugged Andre Ward. You know what I'm saying?
It was like Thanos did the snap and he just like drifted off into space and nobody gave a shit one way or the other.
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, the media. So you got that, and then over at the Zone, obviously you got Chris Maddox and you got the idiot Sergio Mora, you know, which on the Zerto fight, Sergio Mora loves everything Zerto's doing, even though he looks like crap. And he's getting hit by a guy who probably throws a punch is, like I said, the equivalent of the speed of his punch is like a person trying to throw a bowling ball across the street backwards. He's that slow. And he was getting hit. And the thing was, but yet he's so critical of Jaime Munguia, of everything he does. He's always looking for a thing like, this. Sergio's another corporate guy. And then there's the guys out there outside of Chris Mannix. You got the guys who were never even really part of the sport as far as, boxing themselves. So for them to talk about a person's mind, a boxer's mind, or where they're at, the state of the game,
they don't know.
Let me say something else. Like what Mike said and Robert Alcazar said. It takes a lot just to get in that ring.
Mm-hmm.
Just to get in the ring. How many people actually put gloves on? They talk a big game, a lot of armchair quarterbacks, but to get in the ring is a different story. If Sergio handed a pair of gloves over to Chris Mannix, go, come on, Chris.
Let's go get in the ring.
He does it. So how can you talk about what's going on in the Miners Fire or criticize his performance in any way other than being an outside objective?
AJ, I got it.
What?
I got it. We need to do an advertising campaign to try and get Chris Maddox in the ring with some loser nobody, just to see what this loudmouth.
It would never happen.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, wouldn't that? I mean, get a guy that's like 20-0 or 0-20. Somebody that's like 10-10.
It doesn't matter if the guy's a Bruce Mouse Strauss that had over 100 losses.
Get him like 15 or 20 pounds lighter than Chris Mannix and let him go in there. Dude, that would be hilarious.
That's you know what, bro?
I would pay pay-per-view for that. I totally would.
But see, that's attributing that's the same thing as saying Big Mouth Joe Rogan, talks a big game about the MMA things, but how many MMA fights does he have under his belt? He could talk shit on Tito Ortiz, but he's never stepped in that circle before. But regardless of that shit. So what we're talking about was this blanket thing with the media where they're just doing this. And you're seeing what's really bothering me is you're starting to see the guys that really helped elevate the sport with commentating, guys like Al Bernstein. And I used to really respect Al Bernstein. I was addicted to ESPN boxing. Bernstein was there during the days of the what I consider the golden years of ESPN, when fighters were. No, not just that. These are more at a difference, a little bit lower, but guys like Fred the Pumper Hutchings, Mark Frazee, Carlos the Force Tight, some great fighters, Charlie White Lightning Brown, you name it. But the point is, I was over at StubHub, Dignity Field, and Al Bernstein was there, and he was talking with fans, blah, 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 whatever, like this. And a guy standing right there next to Al Bernstein, like he wanted to say hi or something. I looked right at him, and I knew right away who he was. And it was Carlos the Force Tight, who was a former ESPN middleweight champion. A guy who helped set that standard, like Charlie White Lightning Brown and Charlie Choo Choo Brown and a bunch of other people. Bernstein wouldn't even acknowledge him until I said something. I said, hey, Al, Carlos the Force Tight, man. He kept on with his thing. Couldn't even say, acknowledge the guy and go, hey, got a champion right here. Maybe not a world champion, like the ones that he proclaims God now. But this is a guy who helped elevate you, Al, to the position you're in now. But now you're just going to forget about him. It's like a guy in the Super Bowl, who a receiver catches the ball and then he gets hurt the next season and he gets cut from the team and they forget all about him. Coach sees him at the grocery store and doesn't even acknowledge him. That's the guy who put that ring on your finger. And that's the state of the game that we're in. We have guys that have this pencil neck way of looking at the sport. And I'm not going to say that you have to be a boxing person. Look at Vasily Lomachenko's dad. He never boxed, but he's a good trainer in his own right. There's a lot of people like that. You don't have to box. But the problem is, now with this now we're going into our next segment, the new breed. Now with this new segment of young boxers coming up that they're going to find the expressway to a world title through their mouth and their social media. Now you're getting trainers that are coming in that you can tell right from the get-go, know nothing about the sport. And this is going to make the sport worse. The least technical that these fights become, the more methodical, because they don't have absolutely no plan B. It's either they're a puncher or they're a boxer. That's it.
Yep.
No more well-rounded boxers anymore. That's why I tell people, appreciate Canelo Alvarez. Appreciate guys like that, because when they're gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I agree 100%. This this whole new batch of fighters that are coming up. I think it was a couple weeks back, or maybe even a month ago. We were talking about, they're elusive they're elusive keeping that, and they're doing all the wrong things. If we're going to go back to the heyday of when boxing was, I mean, you sold out everything, everywhere. Every pay-per-view was crazy.
Yeah.
Fighters have to fight, and not just fight somebody that's going to keep them that, somebody putting the best against the best, making it so that, you know what, who cares if you have 3 or 4 losses, whatever the case may be, but you know what, you're in there, you're fighting, you're making everything competitive, and there's a possibility that you're going to be the next guy on top. The fact of the matter is, these new guys, for the most part, it's a joke. All it is the social media and, talking themselves up. And then when it actually comes down to the actual fight, I'm going to fight somebody, but he's like, he's got 1 foot in the grave, and I'm going to knock him out in the 8th round or 7th round or whatever the case may be. And then you get, they're just padding in there. I think of the movie Rocky, where Rocky I think it was Rocky 3. I think it was Rocky 3 when Clubber Lang was coming up, and he said, they were fixed fights. No, they weren't fixed fights, but he was protected. Mickey was protecting.
They were handpicked.
They were handpicked. They were all these little handpicked guys that he knew he could just.
They were good fighters, but they weren't killers.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to face the killers to be a killer, to be the best. You have to, go that extra step. You've got to live in the gym. You have to live on the street running. You have to bleed boxing.
Dare to be great.
And if you don't, I don't want to see you. Quite honestly.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, bro. And that's the point I'm saying is, like, now that you got these trainers that are coming in and doing this, they're teaching this stuff too to these guys. Now you're getting people that claim to be boxing experts. So what it is, you'll get a guy who knows a little bit about boxing, starts creates a YouTube channel and gets on whatever and starts doing exactly what we're doing right now. Okay. But he doesn't have an opinion, because you see, this is what people don't understand. There's 2 ways to have an opinion, where you're going to get a positive and a negative. If you come at somebody and you're making it like a fact, and if anybody who speaks out against it, even if it's in an opinion situation format, they get very defensive, like, you don't know what you're talking about. Then prove to me how you do. And when you push to them, they get angry and they push back. I ain't going to talk to you, man, because you don't even know what I know. I do. I'm asking you. Teach me. What do you know? And they don't want to say it. I've challenged so many guys to sit down, not in an angry thing, just to duet each other and sit there and let's talk about boxing. You talk about, to me, we'll pick 3 subjects that where you're on that side and I'm on this side, and let's debate them and let the fans decide. Okay. And it's not about who knows who. Like, man, I was down at the gym the other day, man. And I was down there and I was, talking with, Jared S. I don't care, man. Let me tell you something right now. That doesn't mean shit to me. I want to know what you really know about boxing, what you really know about these fighters outside of the pay-per-views when you hang out with your buddies drinking it. The only time you really watch a fight is if it's a pay-per-view because your buddy bought a cake. That's it. We come from a world where we got into boxing because we loved it. We loved the competitive nature. I remember the early days watching my dad and my uncles, watching, back then it was on TV and stuff, and Select, and watching guys like Aaron Pryor versus Alexis Aguero. Yeah. I mean, you name it. I mean, I grew up on guys like, Bobby Schoolboy Chacon, Salvador Bobby Sanchez.
Yeah. I know.
I mean, but the thing is that these guys, so now they're getting out there and having opinions. Like the other day, I had a guy come out there because he used Munguia's name, and I take a little personally because Munguia is a friend of ours. He said that basically, you're going to say, that Gervonta Davis is cherry picking. Well, what about this guy? And he shows Munguia, and I'm thinking to myself, like,
everybody's ducked Munguia.
I'm like, so when did Munguia cherry pick? Okay, so let me get this straight, because I'm going to throw some facts out there.
Munguia takes anything and everything that comes out of it.
Okay, because the media today which I'm going to say with these, with whether it's Showtime or whatever, they're very good at hiding certain facts. And it's only a slip of the tongue sometimes that these things get out. Me, you, and Mike can look at it firsthand and know. So this is the point. So
Hey,
right
brother,
away
I'm gonna mute myself for just a second, okay? Because I got a phone call and I think it's work. Give me 1 second.
So what my brother's talking here, just give you a little quick fact what's going on. So the gentleman went on to talk about how he felt that Munguia and his people were cherry picking opponents. And I thought to myself, since Munguia came in, what they didn't realize is that, obviously Munguia was the first choice when he first kind of bursted in after being, Prospect of the Year in Ring Book magazine. He gets offered to fight against Gennady Golovkin. He wants to fight. I don't know if Gennady wanted it. I'm sure he did. But whatever reason, Munguia was deemed ineligible, was not deemed a creditable opponent. Instead, they went and got a guy who hadn't fought in over 3 years and was coming off 2 losses in Vanis Mariusin. Munguia goes on to beat Saddam Ali. He's called a weight bully, has successful title defenses there. Some were kind of whatever, but Munguia was struggling with weight issues. He goes on to the middleweight division. In his debut, he knocks out the tough veteran Spike O'Sullivan, who I don't see a whole lot of people fetching to go after. Then from there, he goes on and defeats Patrick Cote, Alote, I believe it's pronounced Alote, another tough guy with a lot of speed. But the one that really got me was Turiano Johnson. Turiano Johnson is one of those guys that just a lot of people just don't want to have a part of. Kind of like what's happening, that stigma that's happening with Luis Ortiz in the heavyweight division. He's there, but you act like you don't know he's there. So, and this being said, he's using Demetrius Andre and Jamal Charlo as 2 people that Munguia wants no part of. And I'm like, why would he want a part of them? Why? He's in boxing to win world titles. If they got world titles, he's going to have to face them. He already tried to go after Gennady. Gennady's probably not going to make that fight happen. He's a mandatory for Jamal Charlo. They're always trying to find somebody to trip up Munguia because of his promotional ties. So they're going to make him do, it was supposed to be Sergey Derevyanchenko. Now it looks like it's going to be this other guy, Brian Adams, whatever. Munguia will knock him out and he'll get his shot against Charlo. But when you look at both Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andre, let me tell you about their last opponents. Okay. So we'll start with Jamal Charlo. Jamal Charlo fought against the fighter Montiel. Now, that Marcel Montiel. Everybody was so high saying this, he was this big hitter, blah, 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 whatever. Not knowing that this guy was a big deal some years back. There was a young guy that was brought in to face him that was also undefeated, but he came in as the B-side, and that was Jaime Munguia. Munguia went in there and knocked him out in the 2nd round. This same guy went 12 rounds with Charlo, and actually, in his unorthodox way, had some success. More success than most people thought. A lot of people thought that maybe Charlo just wasn't. Charlo took a lot of criticism out that fight. Maybe you're just not who you are. But when I said these things to people about, well, Munguia knocked this guy out in 2 rounds. No, he didn't. Yeah, he did. No, he didn't. Why don't you go to Boxer? Go look. It's there in printing. So now let's move on to Demetrius Boo Boo Andre. So Demetrius Boo Boo Andre.
I'm sorry. I'm so tired of him.
Yeah. He's Demetrius Andre is going to go down as another guy who just is going to blame the world for all his shortcomings in his career because everybody ran from him. And like in the words of John Molina, once you've laced up those gloves and you've been in this sport for a while, no one's scared of anybody.
Yep.
But for him to try to make it look like anybody's running from him, it's not happening because his choices, because believe me, there are hungry guys out there. Has Demetrius Andre ever fought Sergey Derevyanchenko? He's going to tell me that Derevyanchenko is going to turn down a fight against him? Or David Lemieux, when he was in that division, he would turn down a fight against him? No.
Nope.
Turiano Johnson would turn down a fight for world title against Demetrius Andre. No. But I'll tell you this. Demetrius Andre is always going to find an excuse.
Yep.
To fight these other guys. So
he prices himself out. He prices himself out half the time.
Well, it's not just even him pricing himself out. I'm looking for something as I'm talking real quick, bro. Him pricing himself out. He's just delusional. Because I mean, you hear, because I'll never forget when he came into that press conference with Canelo Alvarez. Canelo was I think it was right after Canelo beat Billy Joe Saunders.
Billy Joe, yeah. It was just
and
after
he started
Billy
talking,
Joe.
and he actually got under Canelo's skin to the point where Canelo was like, you know what, just get the F
fuck
out of
outta
here,
here.
man. I don't got time for you, man. You're nobody, dude. Who are you? And that's what really got to Demetrius Andre was the fact that he kind of was like, dude, who are you? You've done nothing spectacular but hold the title hostage, in the sense that you don't want to face the best, because for people that don't know, when a champion defends his title, there are voluntaries and there are mandatories. Okay. So in a mandatory, that's when the sanctioning bodies say, this is who you're going to fight based on their ranking. There's always a way to dip out of it. Floyd was great at doing it. So were several others. But when your voluntary comes up, that's when you got your choice. Some guys will choose to take their voluntary as an opportunity to shine. And there's some who take it to just sit back and relax. When you got guys like Terrence Bud Crawford taking a guy like Amir Khan who's coming off devastating knockout losses as his voluntary, when there's guys like Regis Prograis and other ones sitting out there, it shows you his intention,
Just wants to keep that a little longer.
Exactly. And that's the thing that just that just drives me nuts. And the thing was, getting back what I was talking about with Demetrius Andre was I'm sorry, I'm pulling something up here real fast, bro. Give me 1 second.
No, it's like, if you don't dare to be great, you're never going to be great. Period. Andre will never be a great fighter. Period.
Well, it's
not that he doesn't have skills, because he does have skills, but he doesn't display them. Period. He for the lack of a better term, he cherry picks, and then if somebody actually does want to fight him that is going to give him trouble, he finds a way out of it somehow, some way, somewhere. It's sad. It's really sad. You know what? Because maybe he'll have a couple of losses, but it'll make him better. You know what I mean? If you were an actual fighter, an actual boxer, somebody who loved the sport instead of loving the money and loving the status.
Well, getting back to what I was going to say real quick before I forget my train of thought. So I already talked to you about the one piece of the puzzle with Jamal Charlo and his connection to Jaime Munguia being the fact that they both fought a common opponent in Montreal. Obviously, Charlo went 12 rounds with him at a later stage of the guy's career.
Mm-hmm. You froze. Hello? Could be my internet. AJ. Are you there?
Munguia see everything.
Well, sorry, you froze for a minute. I think it was my internet.
You froze too. Yeah, you froze too. Yeah,
all right. So
saying our internet connection's unstable. I don't know what's going on. So get back to what I was saying was, so Demetrius Andre fights this guy named Jason Quigley, who was coming off of a controversial loss in a fight. I thought he actually lost against Shane Mosley Jr., not Shane Mosley Jr. Gets a fight against Demetrius Andre. The problem was Jason Quigley had one loss, which they glossed over. And that loss was a devastating knockout loss at the hands of Toriano Johnson, who, if I remember correctly, Jaime Munguia fought. Matter of fact, when Jaime Munguia, Toriano's a strong guy, but when he stopped him, he hit him with an uppercut that took about a 2-inch piece of his lip and shot it 12 rows back. So once again, it's this thing where they're trying to convince you that these fighters are only this good, but these ones are so much better. Demetrius Andre at the end of the day is going to know what the biggest problem is. The biggest problem is him. Mm-hmm. It's not the fans. It's not the media. It's not the commentating team. It's him. He doesn't have the balls to take the risks. And that's what angers me about. Because like I said again, would I probably like Canelo personally? Will we hang out? Probably not. We don't have those same kind of personalities. But I respect what he's doing because he's doing it in a time when nobody is.
Yeah.
And that's always the unique aspect that you want in a sport. When the guy can come and do something.
I got to say something. Canelo, if you ever see this, I actually would want to hang out with you. I'll have a couple of beers with you.
It's not that.
Just kidding.
It's not that I think he's whatever.
The Mendiola brothers are actually, we like what you do for the sport. We truly like what you do for the sport.
I think he's an ambassador for the sport in his own way. He's had his shortcomings. Everybody's had their shortcomings.
Everybody does, yeah. Everybody. I mean, nobody's without sin. You know what I mean?
But the point is this, so we're segueing kind of our other thing is, so we're seeing the corruption aspect. We need a commentating team that actually goes back and calls fights like how they're supposed to be called. That'd be like a play-by-play guy, with exception to the New England Patriots, who you don't ever want to hear their play-by-play guy because New England does no wrong. That's just irritating. You want to have both sides.
Yeah.
We know always, it's not a mystery how bad the judges are. The judges is like our Supreme Court. Some of them just need to be forced retired because they're so blind, deaf, and dumb. They don't need to be back there judging a man's life. What I mean by man's life is because that critical loss is going to cost him the stability that he needed for his family, because this guy.
I think you froze again. So I'm going to go ahead and say something kind of like what you were saying, that, the man's loss. It's so devastating for a boxer when he gets himself out there and he does the training, he does everything, he gets in there and he beats his opponent, and then all of a sudden they award the win to somebody else. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible that when that happens. I mean, you talk about taking the wind out of somebody's sails.
Wasn't paying attention.
All right. You back yet? You back? I can't hear you. Turn on, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. So
it was weird, man. Everything just blacked out right now. You know what though? I felt something just a little while ago, like a tremor. Like something.
Maybe you had an earthquake.
I don't know, man. But
he's in California, guys. He's in California.
So we're going to be wrapping up here soon because we're a little over. And I'm sorry, I was kind of a jabberjaw, but
no, it's okay. Hey, you know what? I was just saying, how I don't even know what I was saying. Anyway, these, German and English beers are pretty good. So
what the point is I wanted to make for the show today, when I talked about the state of the game, was this: if you love a sport and you, as much as you claim you do,
don't hurt it.
You don't have to be the athlete to be a positive contribution to the sport. Even if you're just a fan, have good things to say about it. Because understand, the guys that are in there, and no matter what level, are risking their lives. We see it every day, the tragedies that happen over just the past few years. But I think the thing the most that bothers me is boxing is a sport that deflects turmoil and negativity at every turn. There's always somebody trying to updo it. If it's not mixed martial arts, then it's these joke promotions like Trilla that are trying to create a boxing alternative. The only way boxing is going to stay where it needs to be is by our champions being champions.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is fighting the guy who's number one,
who deserves it.
When you got guys that have been sitting on the bench, as long as guys like Chon Zepeda, like the guy just recently, I can't remember his name, is the one who just lost, who's the welterweight guy who was the mandatory for Errol Spence. Here's this guy been sitting for almost 3 years as a mandatory, and he gets upset, and now he's lost his opportunity. He was probably ready 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They're trying to do the same thing with Chon Zepeda and many others. The point is, we got to get back to a system that if it's the best fighter, and what you mean by the best fighter is, may not be the most competitive, but if the guy's rated number one legitimately, because he climbed his way to that position legitimately, then just get handed to it from sanctioned body, then he deserves his shot. Because what's the reward to a boxer? What are we, with this alphabet soup of titles and this push and shove and slide over and duck out way of rankings, what are we going to do to inspire the next generation of boxers to want to be boxers? They might just become MMA fighters or tennis players or look at another sport. And we can't have that happen. How we do that is showing them that through hard work, this is your reward, at least an opportunity.
I think, okay, so I honestly think all of these damn titles.
Yeah.
What the hell? Intercontinental, this, that, the other, the South Coast TV.
I think it more has to do with, bro, because it's just so many boxers today. There's so many fights, so many promotions. They have to make it lucrative. And you just can't have a card filled with all 10 rounders and a few 8 rounders. You got to throw a title in there to kind of make it a little glossy. You know, that's why.
Well, then you make the title fight an actual title fight. You know, your champion versus like you said, the number one. Then you have 4 or 5 fights, even if they're 10 rounders, it doesn't matter. Not everybody has to fight for a damn title every freaking time. The Intercontinental Midwest Range Harrah's Casino title. Come on, give me a freaking break.
The Chick-fil-A title.
Stupid. The Chick-fil-A, the Chick-fil-A title, the Taco Bell title. Give me a, you know, it's a joke. It's a joke when you put so many. I'm sorry, it's a participation trophy.
Thank you.
It's a freaking participation trophy. Here, everybody gets to have the blue ribbon because we don't want to make people feel bad. There's winners and losers in life, and there's winners and losers in a boxing match. And okay, so real quick, I'm just gonna I want to touch on this. I want to touch on this real quick, but the judges, I think it's atrocious when you legitimately watch a fight, you mute the damn commentator so you don't hear that, and you judge a fight based on the actual fight. Then you unmute it at the end and hear the scorecards, and they're so screwed up. Yeah. It's ridiculous. I mean, I've been judging fights since I was a kid. All of us. Mm-hmm. And when we are actually not being biased or anything like that, or actually just judging the fight, and then it come out so lopsided on one way or the other, it's stupid. Well, where are they getting these people when you get 2 judges that kind of get it right, and you get a 3rd judge that is so far and left?
He's compromised. He's compromised.
Fire that son of a bitch.
But see, they won't do it because he's compromised. They all have their foot in the door somehow, whether they're related to somebody or whatever the situation may be. They're so entrenched.
That's what's hurting the sport.
Well, absolutely.
But you know what? Because if you're a fighter, like say like a Mayweather, you know, anyway, and he knows that he can get this judge and that judge on his, you know, payroll, I guess you might say. But have these 2 fighters, it doesn't matter what the other judge is going to be, you know, might call it right.
Yeah.
But if he's got 2 of them, he's good.
Well, this is an old age additive because honestly, bro, bad judges has always been a part of almost every sport, but especially in boxing. Yeah. You can go back to the old days. It's always been the thing. You don't want to get hometown. You know, you go to a guy's backyard, you're taking the risk. But it's so blatant today that even the commentators phrase on it that, you know, the fight's so close and we are in so-and-so's town. But that's kind of like, I'm going to segue back a little bit to when I was talking about Mayweather and Canelo.
Referees too. The referees are freaking horrible.
Canelo, you know, everybody was, you know, kind of so whatever, you know, this was the Mayweather show. But when you're listening to the crowd and every person is chanting Canelo and they're booing Mayweather, when they announce his name, literally the entire place booed. So what Floyd has to understand is this: for all of his successes, that he is so easy to put in everybody's face and say, "This is the money I made." In a time when a lot of people are struggling, you know what I'm saying? It's not real classy. But what he doesn't understand is, in order to create and obtain that success, you got to have a dance partner, and his dance partner was Canelo Alvarez. The hype behind Canelo Alvarez and the Hispanic community looking for that next Julio Cesar Chavez, that next Salvador Sanchez, that next Pepino Cuevas.
Yeah.
But they had, you know, they figured this was it. And at the same time, we can put away this money guy throwing whatever. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. And regardless of whatever. But the point is, Floyd doesn't understand is that through all his successes, there's got to be a dance partner. Now, when you look at some of these fighters today, you look at a guy like Demetrius Andrade, who's going to bring nothing. Canelo's very adamant about that. Why am I going to fight this guy? He brings nothing to the table. Because right away, you got these commentators turning guys like Tim Bradley and stuff, attacking Canelo for his decisions to go after another risk and fight in a cruiserweight, but fight David Benavidez. And I like David Benavidez, but David Benavidez isn't a champion in a way because he had his title taken away because of some bad stuff.
Yeah.
He's undefeated. He's a tough guy and he's a legitimate threat. But let's be honest. Canelo's about collecting trophies. Okay. And David isn't a big draw. He doesn't draw big in his hometown of Arizona. So Canelo needs a guy who's going to come in and bring something. When he fought a guy like Callum Smith has a huge fan base. He was the man at 168 pounds. And the UK follows. Okay. Demetrius Andre couldn't sell out, the Santa Monica Civic. Believe me. I mean,
he couldn't sell out anything in Portland, and they don't even box up here.
But let's be honest. The real reason why people are clamoring to want to fight Canelo is the lottery. He is your golden Willy Wonka ticket. He's going to get you there. And if at the same time you could do what Caleb Plant almost did, it's a great thing. But instead, we have commentators who are tearing down these accomplishments of Canelo. One of the brightest aspects that we have in boxing right now, like I said, like the guy, don't like the guy, love what he's putting together because it's making people excited. Hardcore fans and casual fans and creating new fans. But instead, they want to tear it down and live in the memory of a guy like Andre Ward, who did very little for the sport, never extended a hand unless that hand was going to benefit himself.
Let's add some Benjamins.
Yeah, he is. He's just a bitter guy, just like Tim Bradley. They're perfect commentators together because they're both guys that their biggest successes in their careers were actually defeats. Andre Ward did not beat Sergey Koloff in the first fight, and Timothy Bradley sure as hell did not beat Manny Pacquiao.
Yeah.
You're
right.
They can't even admit it.
No.
I would admit it. I'd be like, dude, I think I lost.
I look at it this way. You know what? When Floyd and Canelo fought, Canelo was 23 and Floyd, was very seasoned. But on top of that, after the fight, when it was, the cards were read and you've got the fans booing that decision.
Well, that was going to happen because of the heavily.
But booing that decision in mass, okay? That to me, I don't care, Floyd, if you got that big old W, that's fine. You lost that fight. You lost that fight in the eyes of people, the eyes of fans, the eyes of actual boxing fans.
Well, I think what Floyd doesn't understand is like you work so hard to build your legacy and your image, and now he's just tarnishing it with his bitter, grumpy old man attitude. Like you'll get like sometimes some of those old guys that'll be like, "You guys don't know nothing about boxing. Salvador Sanchez, he was nothing. Willie Pep would have knocked him out." I'm like, "Oh, really?" Because I remember a time when Willie Pep called Salvador Sanchez prior to his death and thought Sanchez was one of the greatest fighters he'd ever seen, and thanked Sanchez for not being in his era. So the point is that we got to stop this backwards type of thinking that we're doing. Boxing is not all about money. Money is obviously a driving point because we all want to make money. We all want to be comfortable. It's kind of hard for most boxers. They just want to make enough money so they don't got to go work at Home Depot, because it's really hard to be a professional boxer when you got to go stack boxes and put up with people's bullshit. Okay. But you can make a living at it.
Yep.
And even when you make a living at it, you have your good years and your bad years. 2 years can go by real fast. That money that you made on that one fight goes real fast. And you got to think about that next angle. So the point being is that we have to start looking at more positive aspects. Even if you don't like the guy personally, look at what he's doing. And if he's doing it right, if he's out there fighting the people he's supposed to fight and winning the fights, compliment him on his performances. You don't have to talk about him personally. He's not going to hang out with you and drink beer, and he's not going to, tell you happy birthday on your Facebook. It's not what it's about, But instead, we want to tear down our heroes, and that's what's happening in this world. Yeah. And that's how we're going to segue out of the show today. We have to stop tearing down our heroes, because once we start tearing apart the fabric of this world and this sport, then you bring it down to the bare bones, and then what do you got left? You got skeletons and dust.
Yep.
It's real simple. Somebody told me something. I remembered. If you take something out of everything, you lose something. So God gave us fish. You know, God gave us trees. God gave us in his image. Take away the water from the fish and the fish die. Take away the land from the tree and the tree dies. Take God away from man, man dies.
Yep.
What I mean by this, I'm not trying to get religious. I'm trying to say the same thing. Take away the dreams, the excitement,
of that
raw nature feeling that we get when our gut is wrenching because we know we got a big fight coming on in the night, man. You can't wait. Take that away from us. What do we got left? We got an empty shell of what it used to be.
Yeah.
With that said, continue to promote boxing. Be a positive person. Even if you don't like the person, a good morning or a good evening goes a long ways.
Amen to that, brother. Hey, with that, Jesus is king. So God bless you all.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I understand.
Anyway, hey, so
great, good show today. I'm sorry so much of a jabberjaws today.
Great show tonight, Michael. Mighty Mike, we missed you. We absolutely missed you.
Always do.
Hey, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Share this with all of your friends. We really appreciate it. And Salsagev, Mighty Mike, we missed you. And hopefully we'll get you on the next one. But for Enter the Ring Live, I am Eric the Red, and you are?
I'm AJ Rage. But remember this, people. Love the sport because we love you. Everybody have a wonderful night. Goodbye.
Amen. Have a good one.
Have a good one, bro.